Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are in midweek working on
Good morning.
overcoming worry, fear, and anxiety, which is a common malady of everybody, by the way, in life. Nobody can remove themselves from that situation, and actually God uses, in a sense, worry and fear as a stimulus. So it's not a bad thing, to have anger, be angry, do not sin, cast your cares upon him. Don't understand that you think about if you have a care to cast on him. Well, by definition, what do you have? You got a concern. I'm worried about. That's why he calls it a care. You have a care. Yeah, I know you have a care. What? A real stuff going on in life. He said, a lot of times you've created it because you keep going deeper with it. That it happened, but you didn't do anything with it. You tried to resolve it, which is the spiritual underpinning of it. Is the reason you still have worry and fear and anxiety is that you haven't learned to let me resolve it. It's a spiritual thing. You can't look at it in the natural or even ask God, would you solve it this way? Which is what we try to figure out in the natural. And he said it's beyond that. It's going to be supernatural. It's going to be spiritual. It's going to be something that I can do that nobody else can do. I can bring resolution to this and trust me in it, which is why we talked about that. There's worry, fear, and anxiety, and it's common, particularly as the world gets stranger. But our approach to that is, as we started, is God will resolve it. And if I believe that, well, then I'm going to go to him. And the first thing we talked about is we'll cast it upon him. And you said it's not, let's see if anything happens. It's
not just toss a little something and hope.
We're not fishing and casting it and say, well, I hope it bites, and probably won't. But rather, no, I'm going to hand over this care. And when we talk about that, this is really important to understand it. You're talking about the entire process, so that it's not just saying, here's a problem, I'm giving it to you.
Get back to me when it's done.
Take care of it. And isn't that casting my care? He says, no, casting your care. And think about, where does your care reside? See, it's in your soul. It's in your mind. It's in your emotion. It's in your will. All of that. He said, you got to cast that whole thing to me and come to me. Why? Well, because I'll resolve it. I'll resolve what? Everything about it, including your heart about it. And you'll stop. You'll stop having fear, worry, and anxiety, because you'll see me resolve it. Now, here's what's really cool. The more you do that, the less you stay in worry, fear, and anxiety, even when you have the problem. Right. Because you know, well, he's going to resolve it. So I don't need, in a sense, to keep worrying about this. I am going to process it with him. So it's not ignoring it. And I want to make sure everybody's clear about this. It's not ignoring it and say, I shouldn't think about it at all, and I'll just stop even thinking about it. Isn't that a good idea?
And it's not suppressing the emotions that come with that either.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when you say that, what does that mean? When you say suppress the emotions?
stuffing. A lot of times we'll feel guilty, honestly, for having the emotions that we're having about whatever is going on. And so we feel like we just have to stuff them, put on a smiley face, and I have faith, therefore I don't feel that.
Right.
Whereas really the emotion is an invitation to step in and let God heal that spot. And that's part of where he's going to work and bring resolution, is
Yeah.
also bringing your emotions to resolution to align with truth.
Yeah. And the stuffing it would be, I really feel this way. I am concerned about this. I'm heavy-hearted about this, but I shouldn't be.
Right.
So I'll try to ignore it. And by the way, it translates particularly, and we'll get into this, in relationships. So that I'm really angry at what they're doing to me. They're hurting me, but I'm going to stuff it and act as if it doesn't happen, even though it is happening, and even though I'm really upset about it. But I'm going to, and this is what you're describing, is I push down my real emotion about this,
Right.
with a thought of I shouldn't have that emotion. Interesting enough, you still do.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's not even the thought of I shouldn't have that emotion. It's honestly a learned response, from childhood, or, different things that have gone on in our life where we have decided that, if expressing that emotion or experiencing it actually causes more trouble and sometimes even physical harm, different things. And so we become an appeaser or a people pleaser. And in doing that, okay, if I stuff my emotion and put on a happy face and just push through and paint everything positive and rainbows and puppies, then it'll all be fine. And we have learned that a lot of times out of a protection mode of things that we've gone on in our things that have gone on in our life. And God needs to rewire us to deal honestly with those emotions.
Right. Because we've placed avoiding conflict above everything else. And isn't that a good idea? It isn't that holy. But underneath it all, your heart says something's still not right.
Right.
And it's hard to do that. We had a couple that got mixed up with a church that was trying to tell them certain things that were completely anti-biblical. As if it was truth, and they said you need to. And the husband had kind of drifted toward, in order not to cause conflict, let's go ahead and kind of do some of the things they tell us we're doing. I'm not sure I buy it either, but we're in the church and we don't want to cause conflict and we don't want to have trouble. And the wife said, I can't do that. There's something wrong here. This is not right. And she could point to scripture that's completely anti-biblical.
Right.
I don't think that's right. Well, you can imagine the conflict that caused with the couple.
Right.
And the issue of, well, wouldn't it be better if, because of the learned response of, let me suppress it. But and this is where the beautiful part of this is that God actually, in your own heart, he's actually protecting you with, wait a minute, something's not right here.
Right.
I just can't automatically do that. And and see, the most of the time, and this is when people that come to me, they haven't known what to do with that. It's that my heart isn't buying it, but everyone else is telling me that's the way to go, but my heart isn't buying it, so I don't know where to go with it, which, by the way, causes worry, fear, and anxiety.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And that then, when I talk to them, I said, first of all, rejoice that God protected your heart, and you had a strength to at least say, I don't know what the answer is, but I know it's not that.
Right.
And of course, the struggle is, well, is there an answer? That's really the question. Is there any answer, or do I, just like I said before, put up with this? Like I said yesterday to Linda, hey, just put up with this. No, God's protecting you, because the heart is the seat of, remember, your residence of the Holy Spirit, who is working your soul to come to the truth and let me resolve things for you, everything about your life, and I'm actually using the truth that's in your heart, or what I would call the disconnect of I'm not supposed to, feel this way, but I do. And that's what you're talking about. Is he uses emotion, interesting enough, to drive us to the truth. Not that it by itself is the answer, but it drives us to, well, what would you say about this, and how would you resolve it? So as we talk about God will resolve, as we start with this, we have to get settled and believe. And of course, you're going to have to test this out to prove it to yourself, but God will resolve it. God has resolution to these things that you wrote down. I'm going to resolve them. I will resolve them. And he says, cast your care upon me, and I care for you. Last time we read Psalm 91, if you abide in the shelter of the Almighty, I will deliver you. I'll protect you. I will. Your enemy will not be able to defeat you. I will take care of it. I'll resolve it. Okay, let's look at another one. Isaiah 26, 1-4. We've a lot of us have heard a piece of this verse, but let's look at the depth of it. Isaiah 26, 1-4.
In that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. He sets up salvation as walls and bulwarks. Open the gates that the righteous nation that keeps faith may enter in. You keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord God is an everlasting rock.
Yeah. So he says that I'm going to bring about, he used the word salvation here, wholeness, a bulwark, a restoration, a place of safety. You can praise me for that. And the only thing I'm asking you to do is to set your mind on me, and I will give you perfect peace. And so now it's interesting, the Hebrew here is, and we've talked about this, is that instead of, I'm going to resolve this, I'm going to move my mind to who? To him.
To him, yes.
And all I'm doing, remember, it's really simple. Father, what do you have to say about this? And I'm just going to ask that question and then have a heart to follow. Instead of set your mind on the flesh, we already know what the consequence of that is: death, enmity against God, and separation, and you cannot please him. He said, but rather set your mind on me by doing what? What do you have to say about this? He said, no, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to give you perfect peace. And so, well, what's perfect peace? The Hebrew is this. And I'm going to give you shalom, shalom, shalom. That's what it says. And I'm going to give you shalom, shalom, shalom. And they don't, the English, they don't want to write it. Well, I'm going to give you peace, peace, peace.
Right.
So they said, well, it's 3 pieces, so it must be perfect.
3 is the number of perfection,
that's it.
right?
Yeah, so I'll give you perfect peace. And it's basically, I'm going to give you shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. It will be absolute. And shalom, remember, is favor. It's not just absence of conflict. I'm going to give you favor. All you got to do is come to me. I'll reestablish the security that you need to live so you don't have fear, worry, and anxiety. And I will deliver to you. The word give is bestow, hand over, deliver. Shalom, shalom. Trust me. And you say, okay, if that's true, that's where I'm going to get favor of this issue that I have, instead of me trying to figure it out. Well, why don't I go to him? Why? Well, because he's going to give me shalom, shalom. And that's the reason that we says, if you abide in the shelter of the Almighty, I'm going to deliver you. If you put your mind on me, ask me, I will deliver to you a resolution. Trust me, trust me. Okay, the next one, and this is building on this. So we said, cast up our cares upon him. We go to him looking for solutions. And then he says, you can trust me about something really significant about my answer. And this is what's really cool, is my answer about this is absolute. In other words, there's no variation to this. It will happen. Okay, now this is really cool. He says, learn that my answer is going to be covenant. And we're going to, the covenant is, I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing that's absolute. So when you approach me, if you knew, Kathy, that God says, I know you got an issue. I know there's a care. That's okay. I get that. You come to me, what do you know? If you really receive this, what do you know that God is saying to you?
I know that he's going to resolve that. And in resolving that, even not only is it going to be a blessing to me to walk me into peace and into abundant life, but it'll be flow through. He'll use it to bless others as well. And that's a beautiful promise. You see the redemption of God in that.
So if you believe that, would you think, well, maybe I'll get a good resolution, but maybe not. Maybe he's just telling me to put up with it. Is that
Right.
is that what you? No,
that is absolutely contrary to to the statement.
Yeah,
He's saying he's going to bring about the best and none better.
That's it. So that that would give us the encouragement. Well, come. And by the way, this is why we label our podcast "Come and See." We know we can tell you all day long. You've seen these scriptures before, and your thought is, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen it happen. I don't see anybody in my church experiencing this. I don't know. We said we get it. We understand. Why don't you come and see? Come and experience this. As we lay this out over the next weeks, take the stuff. That's why we said write down the stuff. Start taking them and follow what we're going to lead you into, and let's. Why don't you give it a try?
And let's see.
Let's see. And if what we read here isn't really true, quite frankly, the whole thing's worthless. What we ought to do then is just say, why don't you call in with your woes, and we'll just say how sorry we are for them, and yeah, there's no hope. Well, wretched man am I. Who can save me from this awful situation?
Right.
And fortunately, Paul says, no, there's an answer. And we know, because this is what happened to all of us. If we took the process and just say, well, let's go find out, is this really true? Because that's really the question. Is it really true? If it's really true, then it will translate into resolution, and I'll experience it, and I'll rejoice. And then the next time I'll find it maybe a little bit easier, and then a little bit easier, and a little bit easier. By the way, does that stop you having trouble or cares?
No. A new one's just going to come up.
Yeah. And that's what he's trying to say is, I'm going to teach you this. I do not want you to live in fear, worry, and anxiety anymore. Are you going to start there with fear and worry? Sure. But let me resolve this quickly so that you don't live there and you rejoice. So let's look at this aspect. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's a quote that I read the other day that when you were saying that, it just triggered a reminder of it. And I think about, in abiding, how we teach that abiding leads to truth and truth leads to freedom. And God does want freedom from worry and fear and anxiety. But anyway, this quote in particular said, if what you believe does not reflect truth, then what you feel does not reflect reality. So if what you believe does not reflect truth, then what you feel does not reflect reality.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where, you talk about the tail wagging the dog, emotions, being the tail that tend to wag us. Yet when we come and we abide and we ask him what he has to say, and he brings us to truth on the situation, that's where then our emotions can come in line with truth and reality, and we'll be free from that worry and freedom, or worry and anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful thing, just knowing we can come to him for truth and believing that he wants to deliver truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so go to, we're talking about, is it true that he is going to deliver the covenant? Go to Psalm 111.
Sure.
It's 10 verses. Read the whole psalm because it describes something important. Psalm 111, 1 to 10.
Okay. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart in the company of the upright in the congregation. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. Full of splendor and majesty in his work, and his righteousness endures forever. He has caused his wondrous works to be remembered. The Lord is gracious and merciful. He provides food for those who fear him. He remembers his covenant forever. He has shown his people the power of his works in giving them the inheritance of the nations. The works of his hands are faithful and just. All his precepts are trustworthy. They are established forever and ever to be performed with faithfulness and uprightness. He sent redemption to his people. He has commanded his covenant forever. Holy and awesome is his name. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All those who practice it have a good understanding. His praise endures forever.
Yeah.
That's a strong passage.
Yeah.
That's one of those people should have as a banner written somewhere in their house,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and keep reading it, pondering it, because this is something that we have to receive because it says so much. But he says a couple of things to start with is he's ever mindful of the covenant.
Right.
The word is that it's on his mind always, ever is always, that what his heart is to deliver the covenant. And it's the premise of the relationship that he's saying to his children who have a heart to follow him is
Right.
you can be assured. That's what I'm thinking about.
Right. And if we truly believe that, that changes everything
Yes. Yeah. Why does that change everything?
because of just how we would respond to things. If we truly believe that he wants to bless us to be a blessing and that his mind, his heart is always on delivering that to us, then we would go to him with everything
Yeah.
and walk right into it and not be worried and anxious and fearful about what's going on. We would simply know, hey, I'm running to my dad. He's got it.
Right. Right. And of course, the problem is that, well, I thought that since I'm a child of God, a believer, aren't I supposed to be experiencing this already? And if God says that, he's mindful of the covenant, the question becomes really simple. Well, how come I'm not?
Why am I not walking?
Why am I not experiencing it? And as far as I can see, my life is cruddy, and I've got a mess, and that's why I'm fearful, worrying, and anxiety because I don't see any of that happening. Is what's going on? And God says, yeah, I need to help you understand what's going on. But to start with is I need you to understand my heart. And my heart is I'm always thinking, ready to deliver, wanting to deliver, give you. And he doesn't say if you are perfect. It's
no.
As you walk with me, I will deliver the covenant. But it's really simple, and we've said this over and over again over our last sessions series. In order for God to deliver it, where do you have to be?
With him.
You got to be with him. He said, I can't deliver it to you if you're not with me. And we've gone into in this series that it's possible that if I'm focusing on the flesh, my thoughts, my ideas, I'm actually at enmity against God. I am not with him. And he said, you got to walk with me. And he said, but the reason you would walk with me, which is what you said, well, because I'm going to deliver the covenant. Why? That's all I think about. Everything that I do is out of that thing. And then he says, I will command it. Well, if he commands it, what does that mean?
It will happen.
It's going to happen. Now, he said, you know, there's condition to that, and we're going to find out what those are. But I'm thinking about it. I'm ready to deliver it. When we are walking together and you've cast it on me and started to understand my resolution, you can be assured I'm going to deliver the covenant. Because, and this is what's amazing. It's not I'm going to have you try to figure things out better in the natural. Rather, I'm going to command things that make a difference. I can change things. Why? Because my spiritual power is superior to everything in the world. Why? Because I created it. How? By speaking it. I can do supernatural things. I can make things happen to bring about my covenant. And guess what? When he says I command it, it means I speak it. I speak it into existence. Trust me. So I'm ever mindful of it. I will speak it. You can trust it. And then he says a couple other things. He says, I am trustworthy. You can be assured it will happen absolutely 100%. There's not a variation of, well, maybe you're unlucky, or maybe your lot in life is never to have the covenant. God says, no, every single child of mine, I will deliver the covenant. Do you have a heart to receive it? Come on. I am trustworthy. You can count on it. It's absolute. Another thing he says is that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. And this is what I try to point people to who are struggling with, I don't know about this. I said, okay. The beginning of wisdom. So do you know this? Most people say, I don't know this. I do not know this, that God delivers the covenant. I don't know this. That's not part of my life. I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere around me. Okay, right. I know that. The beginning is the fear of the Lord. And so in other words, you're starting out to what? Receive it and experience it. And you got to start somewhere. And it said the fear of the Lord is the starting point. Well, what's the fear of the Lord? Is that you're willing to believe what he has to say is true. So that we just read in Psalm 111, what does it say? He's ever mindful of the covenant.
Right.
I will deliver the covenant. I'm faithful. I'm trustworthy. You can count on it. Okay, now that's what it says. So here's what the fear of the Lord looks like. Okay, I read that. Because you said it, it's true. I do not understand, experience, or have any awareness of how that's true.
Yet.
That's the truth. But the beginning of it is said, okay, you said it. So I'm going to go further because you said it. I don't yet know how it's true, but it is true. Why? Because you said it. And that's the fear.
And so that default position is that it is true. It's his word, therefore it's true.
That's it. So the change of the fear of the Lord means I believe what you say, even though I don't experience it or have any clue what it means. As opposed to, I haven't experienced this and I don't have a clue what it means, so I just basically dismiss it. Because, well, that isn't true. You said you're ever mindful of the covenant? Well, then you're not thinking about me, because I don't get it. I'm not having this. And God said, well, what did I say? I'm ever mindful of the covenant. I got to learn what that means then. I got to learn what's the issue. How do I experience that? God says, welcome, son and daughter. Let's go. It starts with, it's true. I just don't yet know how it's true, but I'm not going to dismiss it. Right. Because I don't understand it to be true. And we're not going to let my experience or my emotion or my cares dominate me when I have an opportunity with what I just heard and read. Well, come and see. Let's go find out.
Yeah.
And so that's what he says. So the covenant is real.
That's great.
Go to Proverbs 3:3-4. This is another cool statement about the covenant. Interesting enough, it doesn't use the word covenant, but it does because of the Hebrew versus the English. Proverbs 3:3-4.
Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man.
Okay. And we know Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your steps. And we say, yeah. But it starts out in verse 3 and 4. It says, don't let everlasting love or faithfulness, truth, depart from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the Hebrew word for everlasting love is covenant loyalty.
Mm.
Is don't let the truth that God is loyal to the covenant, or the fact
Mm.
that he will lead you into truth and give you his faithfulness and his verity, depart from you.
Mm-hmm.
It will bring God's favor. Why? Because you've received that as true.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it drift away that you think that God isn't loyal to the covenant. Don't let it drift away that you think you're not going to learn God's way and truth and path because it's not knowable.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let that drift away from you, but bind it in your heart and get it settled. God's saying, get that settled, get that settled. I am loyal to the covenant, and it will bring favor. You can count on it. Stay with that, stay with that. Now, and we know, okay, you can't do that on your own. So it's funny.
Right.
And you hear that, okay, all right, I got to get that settled. All right,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I'm good. Every day I'm going to say, okay, I'm gonna absolutely, yes, covenant loyalty, covenant loyalty, covenant loyalty. But inside, you don't buy it.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're
now,
almost you're relying on self-talk to convince yourself.
yeah. Now, by the way, why don't you buy it?
Because you haven't
You
experienced
haven't
it yet.
experienced it. And this is this interesting place where I haven't experienced this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to rely on it, but my life isn't reliable, and God's work in my life isn't reliable. So how am I supposed to trust that God's loyal to the covenant?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, it's process, and even in this, which we're going to learn, is, well, then I got to go walk with Him to have Him show, demonstrate, persuade that is true.
Mm-hmm.
And all it is you have a heart to go. God says, I'll do the work. I understand how you feel about it right now. No problem. It's not a problem. I can appreciate why you feel that way. You haven't experienced it. I would like you to ask a simple question, son, daughter. If this is true, then why haven't you experienced it?
Mm-hmm.
We got to answer that question. Because either, and this is where God takes it, either it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. I just wrote it. In other words, you really can't rely on anything in Scripture because most of it isn't really true. So why bother? Either it's not true, or I don't know something about how it's going to become true.
Right.
And God says, look, I want you to start. And I know you don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Don't don't think I'm baiting and switching you. Don't think I'm kidding you. Don't think I wrote all this and none of it really matters. It's all true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you don't understand it. I know you've never experienced it. I'd like you to ask me a question. Why have I not experienced it?
Mm-hmm.
He says, come and find out, and I'll demonstrate to you that you can bind that on your heart and know it's absolutely true. And it's something that you can receive and live in favor, which means, and you said it, if I believe that, what will you do?
It changes everything.
What does
You
it
go
change?
you go running to him.
Instead of
You
you
know, and
going
ask
to,
him what he has to say.
yeah, instead of you going to fear, worry, and anxiety,
You take it
you,
straight to the
you start
Father.
out there. Remember, we're not trying to say that you're never going to have that. Is that it starts with that. I got a care. I got a problem. I got an issue. I have a fear about this. I have a little bit of a worry about this. He says, I know. Now come to me and start to learn that I will resolve it and I'll give you the covenant. Absolutely. And I know when you start, you don't know this yet.
Right.
But don't reject it, because if you reject it, what you're really saying is it's not true, and I don't have a heart to go find out how it is true. He says, when you go to that place, what have you done? I've decided
Right.
I'm not going. I'm going my own way. And he said, well, that's not going to work out for you.
Right.
So
And then you're back to the flesh and living in enmity with God
that's
and
it.
all
Yeah.
of those things.
So
Yeah.
he said, if I was you, I would, come and learn this. And by the way, this is what we're committed to because we know all of our leaders have experienced this.
Right.
Now, did they know it when they first started? Did you know it? Did I know it? We didn't know this, but we had a heart to follow. We had to, well, let's go see.
Right.
We found out,
And
hey,
let's be honest, even in that, this is something we all know. Yet, I've been on leadership calls. I have experienced, Dan has experienced, I'm sure you and Linda still at times too. Um, Even knowing this, there are times when our first reaction is to do, solve something on our own or to go to worry, and God just quickly quickens our spirit and is like, no, you remember, this, come back to me, I have something to say. But we don't do this perfectly.
right.
It is something that God is growing and continues to grow in each of us, and there's more than ample opportunities daily for him to remind us and grow us in this process and grow us in trusting him with this.
Okay, now take that, and we've already learned why. Why is it that, well, I don't permanently have this solved?
Well, we live in a fallen world,
Okay.
and there is, in the world we will have trouble, but I have overcome the world. So there are going to perpetually be new things that come up, and we have to come to a new posture of surrender with each of those.
Yeah. And what's the fundamental problem that we have about our nature?
A sin nature,
Yeah,
our nature is going to be self.
Yeah, and see the self, and this is important, and we'll get into this. It doesn't get better.
Right.
So that it's not that I'm earning credits or that I'm learning, oh yeah, this is easy now. Every day, self has to be put to death.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come and follow you, surrender my will to you. And Christ said you can't make that as a permanent choice. You have to make it a momentary choice, a daily choice. And so the problem, as you described it, is even as we that are learning, well, it's better to go with him than not.
Mm-hmm.
We believe the covenant. We absolutely 100%.
Yes.
It's gonna. I know it's gonna happen. Well, then why would you ever go to fear, worry, and anxiety? Well, because
Right.
self, the default is absent of the full surrender to Christ. You default back to self, and you can't. And see, that's the problem that Paul gave us. You can't get around that.
Right.
And your self isn't getting better; it has to be put to death. So, what he wants us to do is recognize sooner that you've gone to self. And again, what does that mean? You've lost your peace. You've lost your joy. You've lost freedom. You've gone to unforgiveness. And he says, when that occurs, and by the way, you know it, and you can observe it, then help each other with the remedy. What's the remedy? Come on back, repent, turn around, come back, and now let's keep going with, oh yeah, that's right. You're going to resolve this. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to cast my care upon you. I expect you to resolve this. I know you are mindful of the covenant. Okay, I'm willing to hear what you have to say and walk with you, and we help each other. So it's not a matter of being perfect at it.
Right.
But it's a matter of do you believe it, live it, and then as you struggle, everybody does. Well, then let's get back to the truth of it. Is God will resolve this and help each other with it. Okay, let's go to the next one, Deuteronomy 6:6-9. This is still about standing on and believing the covenant.
And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates.
Yeah. So what does he say there? What does God say
Real,
there?
we're to keep it always in front of us, always trusting his word and his command and that his leading. It's to always be, day and night, 24/7,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
Because why? Well, because I'm leading you to the promised land. I'm going to deliver
Mhm.
to you the covenant, and I want you to live it by
Mhm.
what? Talking about it all the time,
Mhm.
processing it all the time, encouraging each other all the time. Yep, I
Mhm.
understand. I understand you got a problem. I get it. I understand that it bothers you. You have a care about it.
Mhm.
I understand you've gone to maybe some fear or worry or even anxiety about it. Let me remind you that God will resolve this.
Mhm.
So don't stay there. Come and realize that God will deliver the covenant. It's absolute. Let's go to Him for solution. I'll go with you.
Mhm.
Let's write it on the doorpost of our house. Let's talk about it in and out. Let's not ever leave that. The very
Mhm.
essence of what he's saying is keep reminding each other, I'm going to resolve this.
Right.
I'm going to resolve it. So that we say that to each other. This is what I say to people that I come across that are usually, when they come to me, they're in pretty big trouble with
Mhm.
with deep fear, worry, and anxiety because it's not working out for them, and they
Mhm.
don't know what to do. And then, matter of fact, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So they come to me and say, I'm in this mess. Okay. Uh, I guarantee that God will resolve this.
Mhm.
Um, they're pretty skeptical
Right.
and say, well, who are you to guarantee anything? What do you mean God's going to resolve this? He hasn't so far.
Mhm.
And most of the time, I think he's caused it, and a matter of fact, and because isn't he in control, all that stuff. And yeah, I know. I guarantee you God will resolve it. How can you say that? Well, because I know God. I've
Mhm.
experienced it myself. And he says it absolutely, it's 100%. The covenant will be delivered. And he asked me to encourage you.
Mhm.
Do you have a heart to go? Um, and just that alone usually changes a little bit their perspective. So
Mhm.
what they say is this: so you're telling me it's possible that the mess I'm in can get resolved?
Mhm.
Yes. Not only is it possible, I'm telling you, I guarantee it. Now, by the way,
Mm.
I don't know how, and I don't
Right.
know when. And the ultimate resolution, particularly business, because I get a lot of business issues. So you're telling me my business issue is going to be resolved? Nope, I didn't say that. Matter of fact, your business, you could lose your business,
Mhm.
but God's going to restore you back to joy, freedom, and beauty, and He'll give
Mhm.
you blessing, which includes economic blessing,
Right.
freedom, absolutely. Even if you lose everything, He can restore it all. So I'm not telling you specific. I'm telling you what I know to be true.
Right.
Would you have a heart to go? Just that alone usually shifts a little bit. Well, yeah, I don't know this, and I show them scripture.
Mhm.
What does this say? And I just say, read it. What does this say? What did you just read in Proverbs 3? What did you just read in Proverbs 111 or Psalm 111?
Mhm.
God's ever mindful of the covenant. God will command the covenant. What does it say? What it says. I know you don't believe it, but that's what it says. Would
Mhm.
you have a heart to go? And just that encouragement alone. And they said, nobody's ever told me that before. They told me I'm supposed to put up with it.
Mm.
And suffering, and that's God's lot for my life, is to suffer and be miserable. No, I'm not saying that. I don't believe that at all. I think there's a
Right.
different way. Would you be willing to go? And so, as you know, we do that with each other and our leaders.
Mhm.
Um, you just said it. Are we are we perfect? No. But when we have an issue, we bring it together. Okay, we know
Mhm.
God's going to deliver the covenant. Let's go. And the more
Let's hear what he has to say.
hear what you have to say, and the more that you do that, the more confidence and the more
Mhm.
strength you have of, uh, yep, I got another issue,
Mhm.
and you say, well, this ought to be interesting. I wonder
Mhm.
how God's going to resolve this one, since I already know I can't figure it out at all.
Right.
But I'm going to go to God, and we encourage each other with it. So what we're saying to everybody who's listening is that, you're looking at this, and from your perspective, you're listing all these issues in life that haven't been resolved.
Right.
And you're wondering, wait a minute, is this really true? Or is this just, kind of phony baloney stuff, or what they call the prosperity gospel? And, when are you going to ask me to donate money? No, it's true. It's absolutely true. And the key is we'll come and find out. Let's go one more verse here.
Sure.
Isaiah 12, 1-6. This is still about the covenant. Isaiah 12, 1-6.
Okay. You will say in that day, I will give thanks to you, O Lord, for though you were angry with me, your anger turned away, that you might comfort me. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and will not be afraid. For the Lord God is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. With joy, you draw water from the wells of salvation. You will say on that day, give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the people, proclaim that his name is exalted. Sing praises to the Lord, for he has done gloriously. Let this be made known in all the earth. Shout and sing for joy, O inhabitant of Zion, for great in your midst is the Holy One of Israel.
Yeah. So he says a couple things, that we will draw water from the well of salvation. And the word salvation, the root word for salvation is healing. Is let me bring you complete healing, restoration, fullness of life as I work my salvation. So he doesn't define it as a ticket to heaven, a transaction. He says it's me to deliver the life and give it to you super abundantly. And I'm going to have you draw water from that constantly to be refreshed and believe that it's so. And he says, when you do, he says, what will you do? Well, you're going to make known his marvelous deeds and rejoice. Okay, now, when would you rejoice and make known his marvelous deeds?
When resolution has happened.
When he did his deeds. He had to do something. See, he actually had to fulfill something, because it doesn't say, I'll tell you the theological understanding of God, but I'm not telling you it really is experientially true, but you should. Don't you want to go to heaven? And he says, no, you will express my work. The word there is work. My work for who? For you. When you needed it. By what? Resolving your issue. Why? Because I'm mindful of the covenant. I'm going to deliver the covenant to you. So he said, you draw water, stay with me, draw water, get refreshed. While you do that, I'm going to be at work doing what? Resolving the issue. Which is, by the way, is why you'd come and draw the water.
Right.
Because why? Because I'm going to get the deeds completed for my benefit. So it's a beautiful thing that he says that you can be assured of the covenant. I'm going to deliver the covenant. I'm mindful of the covenant. I will do my work specifically for you to resolve this issue. Cast it upon me. Expect and come to me to listen to the process of me resolving it. And then trust me that I'm going to deliver the covenant. And if you believe that, you would act differently. What would you do? Well, instead of you figuring it out, which, by the way, moves you further away from my resolution,
right? You'd
come to me and I'm going to resolve it. It becomes kind of that simple. And all we can do is encourage people to say, we're telling you, we guarantee it 100%. It's absolute. And you can write questions and say, I doubt it. I think you're full of baloney. That's fine. Send it in, but stay with us and start to learn and come and see that it's really true. So it's going to be fun to keep going with this. If you got questions, send them in, including challenges. Go ahead, send them in. We're happy to deal with them. Questions at afjministry.com or on the YouTube comments section. And we've already had a few questions already about anxiety and what does that mean and what's the difference. So we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to process stuff, and anything you say, we'll bring it up and talk about it. No problem.
Yeah,
we're
it's
not
absolutely
here
great.
we are not here to persuade you of anything. We're
Mhm.
here to give you the truth of the word, and
Mhm.
all we can do is share you in our life. Having learned this, we
Mhm.
can say the covenant is absolute, and
Right.
we guarantee it'll happen for you too.
Yeah. And again, it's, back to the title of the podcast, just come and see.
Yeah, yeah,
No, come and see. The invitation is there. The Father waits to speak to you and to bring resolution.
yeah,
And that we want to show you.
yeah. We sure do. All right. Well, we have guests tomorrow. It'll be a surprise
Yeah.
guest, and that's the reason it's a surprise guest. We haven't taped it yet, so it's going to be a surprise to Kathy and I too. So we'll be excited, but it's going to be terrific because it's always somebody who's going to share real life stuff. And then Friday
Mhm.
we'll continue with the end times,
Oh, we're
uh,
getting to some
which we've
interesting,
been
well, it's been interesting,
dealing
but
with
boy, there's some
the
good stuff.
rapture, dealing with rapture
Mhm.
stuff, and what is the rapture, and what does the Bible say about it, and what can we understand, and is it
Mhm.
everybody's question is the rapture pre-trib or not? Well, we're going to talk about that. Maybe it's not absolute. It's possible, but it's not absolute. So tune in, and
Mhm.
we'll talk about that. So, Kathy, we'll see you tomorrow, and then next week we'll pick this up and go further into the beginning of how do we move into the
Mhm.
resolution part of it.
Great. All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. As always, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a
Yep.
great day.
Great. See you later.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.